AEW Unrestricted. It's Will Washington, it's Aubrey Edwards, and it's the best time of the month. It's pay-per-view week, and pay-per-view week means that it's time to talk about AEW WrestleDream. It's live. It's this Saturday, Tacoma, Washington. It's going to be live on pay-per-view. And, of course, you can catch it on Triller. You can catch it on YouTube. Any place you get your pay-per-views, definitely make sure you are checking out WrestleDream. It's an exciting time. I'm really excited. Tacoma, Washington, the Tacoma Dome. There's so much going on this show, and we've got so much to get to. So we're just going to start off with the AEW Women's World Championship. This past Tuesday at Title Tuesday on Dynamite, we crowned a number one contender to determine who is going to be facing Mariah May, and that person is our guest, the one and only Willow Nightingale. Willow, thank you for being here on AEW Unrestricted.
Thanks for having me. And already my cat Franklin had been poking his head in to say hello as well. So
Franklin
Well,
is just
hello, Franklin.
very excited about your number one contendership. So congratulations on your match, Title Tuesday. So wonderful.
Well, a little bit later on in the show, we're going to be joined by Chris Jericho, who, of course, is going to be challenging your conglomeration mate, Mark Briscoe, for the Ring of Honor World Championship. But thinking about if the two of you are successful at WrestleDream, we're talking about two world titles essentially coming home to the conglomeration. We're talking about essentially two of the founding members of the group being able to call themselves world champion. Talk about a little bit of what that means to you.
You know what that would mean? That would mean that the word of the day would be champion. Actually, we could probably come up with something way better than that. Victorious. I got to look through some SAT prep and see what a really good SAT prep word would be, because I feel like I don't even know where Mark comes up with these. He just pulls them out of nowhere. He's defying the stereotypes about rednecks. That Mark Briscoe, very verbose. But yeah, I think that would really solidify our legitimacy. I mean, obviously, we're all friends. We're all having a good time. We're rooting for each other. And I think it's important to show how important friendship is and how far it can get you. But hey, we're looking to come out the other side of WrestleDream. Not just friends, not just people who support each other through our tough times, but as victorious champions. And I think that would really kick us into a new gear of what the conglomeration is and can be.
So you are not, this isn't your first championship bout. In fact, you've been a champion for AEW, former TBS champion. You've been a champion for other companies, New Japan Strong. You've been a champion for CMLL. What would it mean to put the Women's World Championship on that list of accolades?
To me, and this is in no way trying to diminish the accomplishments that I've had so far, because the titles that I've held, the matches that I've had have literally brought me to tears, by how much it means to me. But the moment AEW started, I knew this is what I wanted to pursue. This is where I wanted to be. This is the home that I wanted to make for myself. And the Women's World Championship is the grandest prize for us. And so everything I've done means so much. It really does affect me. I carry that with me. But that's the one thing that I really, really have been gunning for this whole time. And, I've wrestled Toni Storm at Forbidden Door for it before, to no avail. But I feel a little something. I feel a little magic. I feel like I can do it. I mean, I thought I could do it last time. But this time, I know how much I've done since then, the mountains I've had to climb and overcome since then. And, we're always aiming to grow. We're always aiming to get better. But I really can see the difference in who I am as a wrestler, as a fighter, as a competitor. So everybody, let's keep our fingers crossed, our toes crossed, and I will go out there and put my best forward.
Well, let's talk about some of the opponents you faced in the past, because just this year you've You've come up against some of the best that the AEW Women's Division has to offer. You got to face off and defeat Julia Hart. You went one-on-one in a triple main event with Mercedes Moné, the current TBS champion. You faced Kris Statlander at All Out in an incredible Chicago street fight. But now you've got right in front of you Mariah May. Where does Mariah May fit in? This isn't your first time getting in the ring with Mariah May either. She actually, you two faced off one-on-one in the finals of the Owen Hart tournament, and that actually was the match that was to get you to the World Championship match at All Out, or All In, excuse me. Sorry, I seem to be opening up old wounds as I say this. I'm just watching your facial expression. But talking about the fact that this isn't your first time facing Mariah May, talk to me a little bit about her as an opponent and a little bit about what you have to prepare for this time around.
So I think there's a lot of feelings going on, and there's a lot of strategizing going on, because there is already, as you mentioned, the old wounds. I did win the Owen Hart tournament last year, and there was no going on to get a title shot. So there's a little bit of a chip on my shoulder about that, because the way that she was able to even become champ was never afforded to me. But that is okay. That is sometimes life. Sometimes it's not necessarily fair, but that's okay. That's okay, because when the opportunity was there, she did beat me. And there was, of course, a little interference from Stokely and Stat, but I will admit she pinned me with my shoulders on the mat. And at that point, she had a much better demeanor about her. She fought a little bit more fairly. This new Mariah, this world champ Mariah, she's much more cunning. She is much more, a word I will refrain from saying.
Oh.
So it is like a little bit of a different ball game, and emotionally I have to try to not be too invested in like the frustration I have tied up with the Owen situation. I have to just focus on the fact that I want to be the champion. And Mariah, for all that she is the person standing in the way.
Oh, man.
And so my plan is to study, or it has been to study, and to be wary of her tomfoolery. I'll put it that way.
It's such a pleasant way to talk negatively of your competitor. There's no one else as good as that at Willow. Thank you so much for being on the podcast today. I'm so excited for this match happening this weekend at the Tacoma Dome. We've got Willow Nightingale and Mariah May for the Women's World Championship. This is going to be dope. Thank you so much for chatting with us today.
Thank you for chatting with me, guys.
And going from one world championship to another, the AEW World Tag Team Championships are on the line. The Young Bucks, the EVPs, the three-time AEW World Tag Team Champions are defending the titles against opponents they are very familiar with in Private Party. We've been celebrating the 5th anniversary of Dynamite recently, and a moment that's always talked about in Dynamite history goes back to the 2nd episode of Dynamite, Boston, Massachusetts, the number 1 seeded Young Bucks in the inaugural AEW World Tag Team title tournament getting defeated by Private Party. And, that's a moment that has meant a lot to Private Party. But talking about the fact that Private Party, it's been 5 years now since that moment occurred, and they've been scratching and clawing to get back to that and get to that specific moment. And here we are 5 years later, almost 5 years to the day, really. We're talking about, that was the 2nd episode of Dynamite. Here we are 5 years and a week into Dynamite's run, and we are headed to WrestleDream. Private Party challenging for the AEW World Tag Team Championships. I've always been a really big fan of Zay and Quinn. I kind of want to see him do it.
I mean, yeah, and they said themselves too, like 5 years of Dynamite, new year, new Private Party, like let's kick it off. Let's really just go all in on Private Party. And seeing these guys grow over their time at AEW, like they've had ups and downs. We've seen injuries, we've seen successes, but we've never seen championship gold on these guys. And for them to be day one AEW, they've been putting in the work. Like, I really want to see Private Party walk away with this too, especially since the EVPs are just, I feel like they're rubbing it in people's faces. Do they need to keep these championships? It seems a little like suspect that we got the bosses, got some titles. I'm just saying.
I'll say this in defense of the greatest tag team to ever lace up a pair of Jordans. I will say that Matt and Nick have been on a roll recently. That I think their recent world title defenses have been phenomenal. I thought Grand Slam was excellent. And to see the gear that they've hit with this world championship run, it's clear for them that they're just getting started as far as they're concerned. And they have no intention of losing to Private Party. But I think as a day one AEW fan, just somebody who's been watching this show since the beginning, I remember that feeling I got when Private Party successfully defeated the Young Bucks on that second episode of Dynamite. And to know that they have the opportunity to do that again, but this time actually become the AEW World Tag Team Champions. I was actually, I was talking with Jeff Jones. It was actually just a week ago. It was at the 5th anniversary show. And we were talking about how for that original tournament, everybody had taken pictures with the world tag titles and every team that was in it. And seeing Private Party with those belts 5 years ago and knowing that, they didn't really get to hit that again, knowing that it could potentially happen, just seeing that visual though of them with the belts. And it was like, man, this felt right then, but it feels even more right now.
They'd have to take new photos because those boys have grown up quite a bit since then.
Yes, they have. And that's the thing. Yeah, absolutely take new photos. Also, we've got new belts since then. But either way, just seeing it, though, it felt right. And it feels right now. And I want to see Private Party do it.
You know what else feels right? Shibata having a title. Like the fact that we've got Katsuyori Shibata versus Jack Perry also on this pay-per-view is insane. I feel like Shibata, given his history in wrestling, he's a legend in his own right. But without seeing him hold gold, or I guess it's pewter now that Jack Perry sent it through a series of arts and crafts, I want to see Shibata with gold. Like, I feel like that's something that he's earned. It's something that he's done so much in his career. These are just two things that are meant to be.
Yes, and we saw this past Wednesday that Shibata's got some backing this time around, and I want to see what Shibata's going to be able to do in this scenario with Jack Perry. Right now, we were just talking about the AEW World Tag Team Championships and the fact that the Elite has the opportunity to, with all of the gold on the line, they could potentially walk out with none. And the guys that could take those titles from them are really sentimental fan favorites. The Shibata is so beloved by the AEW fans. And for him to be able to become the TNT champion could be a huge moment in Tacoma. It's happening this Saturday. It's WrestleDream. You can check it out on ppv.com. You can check it out on Triller TV. You can check it out on YouTube. But we want to see you there in person, AEWTix.com. Come to the Tacoma Dome and come be a part of AEW WrestleDream. And as far as this show is concerned, AEW Unrestricted, we've got so much more to come. We've got guests coming up on this show, including Darby Allin will be with us a little bit later in the show. But coming up after this break, we're going to be joined by the challenger for the Ring of Honor World Championship. He is the Ocho. He is the Learning Tree, but he could potentially become the 9-time world champion. It's Chris Jericho. All that and much more when AEW Unrestricted continues.
Unrestricted.
It is Aubrey and Will, and we're talking about WrestleDream happening this weekend at the Tacoma Dome. Watch it on ppv.com, watch it on Triller TV, watch it on YouTube. We could not talk about this pay-per-view without talking about the Learning Tree, Chris Jericho.
Hi, I'm here.
Hi, guys.
Hi, guys.
Yes!
That's what you're waiting for, right?
I was waiting for it. It's my favorite part. Oh, I love it. I love it so much. Like, you already have this, amazing legacy that you've built at AEW, and now there's a chance that you could again become the Ring of Honor World Champion. How would it feel to become El Nueve instead of the Ocho this weekend?
Well, I mean, once again, at this stage of my career, I'm all about, mentoring and elevating other talents, as you can see with the Bad Apple and with the Redwood. But still, when you get into a position where you get to wrestle for a title, it's always very prestigious. And I think, honestly, what we did with the FTW title took it to a different level to where Hook pretty much had to retire it, because how much further could you go with that title? And who would have ever thought in the first place that Chris Jericho would be FTW champion? But,
Right.
I did, and we did something really fun with it. I did the same thing with the Ring of Honor Championship a few years ago with the Ocho. I mean, that was pretty much a dead title. We made it very coveted, had a lot of spotlight on it with all the different matches, with all the different guys like Bandito and Ishii, et cetera, et cetera. So I'm poised to do it again on Saturday with the match against Mark Briscoe, and I mean, why not? Let's take the Ring of Honor title and put it back on the map where it's very prominently displayed once again.
Well, let's talk about Mark Briscoe, your opponent, a man who really made the Ring of Honor World Championship a destination for him. We've kind of discussed time and time again how his brother Jay was a former Ring of Honor World Champion, and it was a legacy that his brother left behind. And for him to get to win that World Championship was a major moment for him. And it doesn't seem like that's a championship he's willing to part with at this moment in time. It feels like there's still a lot more to go for him. Let's talk about a little bit for him as an opponent and what that would mean for you to defeat Mark Briscoe specifically.
Well, nobody ever willingly gives up a championship ever, unless you're doing a finger poke of doom or something like that. And Lord knows Mark Briscoe isn't going to do that. Yeah, I mean, it was very important for him to win the Ring of Honor championship. Because this is not being a snidely heel, he was under the shadow of his brother Jay. I mean, Jay was the older brother, and Jay was kind of the point man in that team. And as great as Mark is, Jay was kind of more the singles guy, and Jay was a two-time Ring of Honor championship, and if and when I beat Mark Briscoe, I'll be a two-time Ring of Honor champion, which would be quite ironic. So I think Mark Briscoe's fighting for a lot more than just the championship. I think he's fighting for the legacy of the Briscoe brothers. And, ever since Jay passed away, I think Mark's one of the reasons why he's continuing to wrestle and working at such a high level is as a tribute to his brother. And I totally understand that, and I totally respect that. And I think that's why it's going to be extra difficult to beat him, because you're not just fighting one guy, you're fighting his whole family, and Lord knows he's got 16 kids or whatever it is. He's fighting for all of them as well. So it's not easy anytime you're in the ring with Mark Briscoe. And that's another reason why I'm really interested in this match, is that Jericho and Briscoe have never been one-on-one through all these years of wrestling. He's got decades of experience, as do I. We were never in the same company together. I was never in the ring with Jay. I've only been in the ring with Mark a few times in six-mans, etc. So I think it's going to be quite a wild display just from that alone. For me at this stage to work with guys that I've never been in the ring being in the ring with before is kind of one of the reasons why I still really enjoy doing it. And it's always a challenge, and it's exciting for me. I think the word dream match gets thrown around quite a lot. And I'm not saying this is a dream match, but it's a match that I certainly would be interested in if I was a fan, especially if I was following Ring of Honor and knowing the Briscoes' history, and of course Chris Jericho's history as well. So I think it's going to be quite the interesting and very classic first-time matchup.
One of the things that you've been really great at the entire time you've been at AEW is mentoring younger talent, and we're seeing that regularly now with the Redwood Big Bill and the Bad Apple Bryan Keith. How do you balance your role as being sort of a mentor, but also the amazing in-ring competitor that you are?
Well, you want to feature them as much as possible, and that's one of the things, critics would say, oh, Jericho's selfish or blah, blah, blah. But that's how you get fans to understand who these guys are. I mean, I did it with Danny Garcia. I did it with Sammy Guevara. I did it with MJF. I did it with, Orange Cassidy. Like, who are these guys? and then you work with them, and people start familiarizing themselves. I butchered that word, but you know what I mean. They get more comfortable with who these guys are. Same thing with Bryan Keith. I didn't even really know much about him, and when it was suggested to have him join, Big Bill and I was like, sure. And then right away, you realize this guy's very special. It reminds me a lot of a Danny Garcia and a lot of Big Bill as well, of a guy who's been around, but hasn't really been focused on. And I know Big Bill was a tag team champion here, but it's different now. You can see he's got so much more confidence. So my job is to just kind of stand, obviously in the forefront because of just the name value and the legacy that I have. But the bottom line is always to make sure that those guys continue to grow and get ahead, and most importantly, get confidence. When you get confidence in this business, that's when you get great and you can handle any situation. I think of Jack Perry when I first started working with him and all the advice that I've given him along the way. He's starting to get confidence. Hook, how much better is Hook now after he worked with me and with Samoa Joe as well? I mean, you're getting to figure out who you are as a performer, and where you stand in the business and in the company, and that's where guys really continue to grow. So that's always been my role here in AEW from day one 5 years ago. I was the biggest star on the show, but you can't base the whole show around Chris Jericho for longer than 2 or 3 months. We have to build Cody, we have to build Orange, we have to build the Inner Circle, we have to build Kenny and the Bucks and Hangman Page and all these guys that weren't national stars at the time, and now they all are. And I had a lot to do with it, with a lot of those guys, and I take great pride in that. So I was just talking to Swerve Strickland just a few minutes ago and giving him a couple compliments. That's kind of what I'm there to do, and happy to do it, and really excited to see the growth in so many of these young talents and how they're just growing in leaps and bounds in the company as they get that mystical, evasive word, confidence.
Well, talking about the balance of being both a mentor and a performer, at this point, you are an 8-time world champion, and each of those has had it's had its own story in its own right. Now, talking about the fact that you could potentially become a 9-time world champion, what does it mean at this stage of your career to potentially be a world champion now?
I mean, I think it's, once again, you think of Chris Jericho, big picture. It's really interesting to me sometimes when I really analyze it, just the amount of different opponents and eras that I've been in the ring with. I mean, I was in the ring with Gene Kiniski and Dick Slater and guys like that, where you're like, what? What are you talking about? Bulldog Bob Brown and all these, like what, really? Atsushi Onita and Genshiro Tenryu and that sort of thing. And then here we are now working with, Daddy Magic and Kyle O'Reilly and Mark Briscoe. And, so all of those eras, yes, I'm an 8-time world champion, but it's been in a lot of different companies. WCW world champion, WWF world champion, WWE world champion, AEW world champion, and now Ring of Honor champion. That's a lot of different championships just from a world title standpoint. So, like I said, it's not a focus, but if you're not in the business to still want to be a champion and try to be a champion as much as you possibly can, then you're kind of missing the point of what the business is all about. And a world championship is a world championship. I don't care at what level it is. If it's a world championship, then that's very important and prestigious. Of course, I still always want to have a chance at the AEW World Championship, but the Ring of Honor World Championship ain't nothing to laugh about either, especially when, like I said, I feel I really elevated it the last time a few years ago with the Ocho. So it is a big deal, and it's not something to ever take lightly. And like I said, once again, I know the Briscoe family doesn't take that lightly, because that's part of their whole lineage and part of the reason why they're now more motivated than ever. I mean, how hard is it for Mark Briscoe to continue in the business where it was completely linked to his brother Jay? Well, this is one of the ways to do it. He can start to forge and carve out his own path, like I mentioned earlier, in a tribute, in a memoriam to Jay. So he's a raving psycho as it is. The guy's crazy. If you see, he has zero front teeth. He really doesn't. I'm scared to be around him. When he's barking and last week when he got super serious with what he said to me, which is why I said what I said to him. I want the real Mark Briscoe. I don't want the word of the day Mark Briscoe. I want the guy who's going to go out there and try and tear my head off, because that's going to make me better as well. At the end of the day, do I think I'm going to become the Ring of Honor World Champion for the second time? Of course I do. That's why I challenged him in the first place. Do I think I'm going to pay a price with this lunatic in the ring with me? Yeah, I will. But that's kind of all part of what we do. And I think it just equates to being a very exciting match for the fans. Some will like that I'm the champion. Lord knows a lot are going to hate that I'm the champion. But tough luck. This is pro wrestling. You can't always get what you want, as Mick Jagger said.
Oh, so great. Thank you, Kris. I know your busy schedule, and I appreciate you taking a couple minutes to chat with us about your match this weekend. I'm really excited to be there and to see it. Thank you so much for joining us today.
We'll see everybody on Saturday. I'm looking forward to it.
Yes, thank you, Kris.
And talking about Tacoma, we can't talk about Tacoma, Washington without talking about Tacoma's own Swerve Strickland, who will be making his return to Tacoma. We haven't seen Swerve since All Out, since that brutal lights out steel cage match with Hangman Adam Page. And
I think brutal's an understatement. Like, it was
real
bad.
And Tony Schiavone mentioned a few weeks ago that he had a rough few weeks going into that. He had his childhood home burned down, and before that he lost the AEW World Championship to Bryan Danielson. And now we've got MVP and Shelton Benjamin, who have clearly set their eyes on Swerve Strickland. Swerve's got a lot to address, and he gets to do it in front of his hometown fans. What's he gonna say?
I have no idea. I'm excited. Like, what do you say after everything he's been through in the last month, but also everything he's been through in the last year? Like, Swerve is basically a cornerstone of AEW at this point. Like, he came in a little bit later than everyone else, but it's hard to not think about AEW and not have Swerve Strickland be one of the first 5 names you mentioned. So I'm excited to welcome back home. I'm excited for him to be in front of a hometown crowd for the first time ever, technically. But yeah, I have no idea what's going to happen. I'm really excited.
I am so excited for this. And another match that I am extremely excited for.
Are we going to talk about it? Yes.
This match just sounds insane on paper when you think about the combination of everybody involved. But we're talking about the AEW International Championship. We're talking about Will Ospreay defending the AEW International Championship against Ricochet and Konosuke Takeshita.
Yeah.
My God.
Right?
Thinking back to Revolution this year and Will Ospreay versus Takeshita, one of the greatest matches to take place in an AEW ring, one of the top 5 matches of this year, and I think a match that made everybody look at Takeshita. Everybody's already seen Takeshita as that guy. This is a guy who's got victories over Darby Allin. He's got victories over Kenny Omega. This is a guy who clearly has stood toe-to-toe with some of the best the AEW has to offer. But to know that him and Will Ospreay did what they did in that ring together, they made magic happen.
Yes.
And then we have Ricochet, who's still fairly new to the AEW fold, but he's not new to Will Ospreay. These two are very familiar with each other. We saw them nearly go the distance on Dynamite 5th anniversary last week. And now with all 3 men together in one ring, this has the potential to be one of the greatest 3-way matches of all time.
I mean, my favorite part of a 3-way match is that the champion doesn't actually have to be involved in the pin. Like, that's always something that's really interesting. We saw that back at I think, remind me again what pay-per-view it was, but it was Julia Hart won the TBS title by
Full Gear last year.
There we go, by not pinning the champion Kris Statlander. So we have seen this happen before very recently. And I mean, everything you're saying, like Ricochet and Will Ospreay, like those two are synonymous. The way that they wrestle is basically like what wrestling is today. Like, they kind of brought to the forefront the current style of wrestling. But at the same time, we see Konosuke Takeshita, who has essentially become this like wrecking ball through AEW, and the fans have gotten so behind him, and seeing his growth in such a short amount of time. Like, this is one of those matches that I literally have no idea what's going to happen going into it. but I know that my mom is going to be texting me furiously because 2 of these 3 wrestlers are her absolute favorite. She's excited.
Oh, this is going to be incredible. I'm so looking forward to this. I think it's really anybody's ball game as far as who could walk out with the championship. And I'm just excited for it. I'm so excited for it. And I'm so excited for this show, WrestleDream. Everything we've talked about so far, and we've got so much more to talk about, can be seen this Saturday. It's available on ppv.com. It's available on Triller TV. It's available on YouTube. But you'll also want to be there in person if you're in the Tacoma or Seattle area. AEWTix.com is the way to get those tickets and be a part of the show, be a part of history. And we've still got so much more to come. We're going to be talking with Darby Allin, Seattle's own Darby Allin, and the match he's got coming up with Brody King. We're going to be talking with him and so much more to come right here on AEW Unrestricted.
This is Will and Aubrey on Unrestricted, and we are talking about WrestleDream, the pay-per-view this weekend happening at the Tacoma Dome. Pay for the whole seat, only use the edge. We are very, very excited to be talking to various different people that have matches coming up this weekend. And next up, we've got, I'm going to use air quotes, local, because Tacoma and Seattle aren't necessarily really close, depending on traffic. But we are welcomed by the one and only Darby Allin. How are you doing, sir?
Yo, what's up?
Yo, so you had set an open challenge, and Brody King was the person that stepped up and answered that open challenge for WrestleDream. And you guys have a long history together. What have you learned from all those previous battles against Brody?
So the thing is, like, we started our wrestling careers like the same year. We've been wrestling the same amount of time, and we've came up on the indies at the same amount of time. And I remember seeing Brody King in my first 2 years in wrestling. And he was a guy who, just like me, who wanted to just prove a point. We had a big chip on our shoulder. It was like the landscape of wrestling back then on the independents was insane. Insane. It was so hard to like break through and really create a name for yourself. So we went out there every night and like we tried to kill ourselves. But then when I wrestled him, I lost to him on the independents. Every time I've wrestled him, I've never beat him. I beat him in the coffin match, but I've never pinned him in the ring. And that's like a thing that I've kind of carried with myself is, can I beat Brody King? And I think he knows the answer to that. And that's why he accepted the open challenge, because I feel like in a way he kind of feels undervalued right now, you know, with AEW in his thing. He had the Continental Classic last year. He was almost like a bona fide singles, like that was just like coming out thing in a way, the Continental Classic last year. But I think he's trying to build his name off of me again and jump back into that spotlight. And he knows that I've never pinned him in that ring. On the independents 7 years ago, didn't pin him in Atlanta when he wrestled for the very first time at AEW. And you know, you can say that the coffin match, in a way, I beat him, but I didn't really beat him. So it's this history goes on years and years.
Well, talking about the history between you guys, again, like you said, you know, the independent fans have seen you guys kind of up and down. AEW fans really got their first taste of you guys in the first Royal Rampage. And, you know, that was a significant visual in that the way Brody eliminated you from the Royal Rampage, I think, has stuck with fans for a very, very long time. And it really set the tone for some of the viciousness that we've seen from Brody King. And as it relates to you in particular, that he seems to really love dishing out punishment to you. How do you prepare for somebody like Brody King?
You know, every day of my life, I prepare for the unexpected. That's why I do so much crazy stuff outside of the ring. That's why you'd see me, you know, jump off a 60-foot waterfall or jump a car over my house. Like, it literally keeps me on the edge. And, you know, like a guy like Brody King, when he's bored, he's dangerous. And I really think he's always dangerous, but he's really, I feel like, in a way, he's just kind of like that. Like right now, House of Black is kind of like that, and Brody wants to like really ruffle the feathers of AEW. I feel like, and if he does it on his own, he kind of sees this as the gateway of doing it. And Brody to me is a guy that you see outside in his real life. A lot of people don't know this, but outside in his real life, he's like in an actual hardcore band called God's Hate. And it's like a crazy band where their live shows, people are getting like beat up. Like it's crazy. Like there's like fans are getting like messed up and sent to the hospital. There's like all these crazy like stuff going on, so much like violence in real life that fans don't know. Like so if they go out there, if people think Brody King is going out there and playing an act as like this big dangerous guy, man, they're wrong because he's lived this his whole life, and I kind of want to pull that out of him in the sense of like, all right, be that Brody King that I know that you are in real life on AEW, like be that guy, because I think that's a lot more captivating than your whole Spirit Halloween act.
Oh, deep cut, man. So as you kind of mentioned, you do some crazy stuff. Like we've seen you your entire time at AEW, just completely putting your body through all kinds of punishment. We unfortunately saw you have like your first injury earlier this year. How do you stay physically ready for someone as dangerous and as big and as crazy and scary looking as Brody King?
You got to keep your pain tolerance at an all-time high. That's why I do all the stuff outside the ring. Like, normally when I feel like I'd like to think a lot of wrestlers, when they get done wrestling for the weekend, they kind of just go home, they can work out, they go to the gym, they do stuff. But like I still, like I'm doing all this like crazy stuff outside the ring. And I really feel like it keeps my body like ready, because the years of skateboarding, I feel like got me more ready than anything I could have done. Just years and years of falling on concrete got me like my pain threshold at an all-time high. So if people are going, they're like, oh yeah, Darby's like the smaller guy, but it shouldn't make sense for him to take as much of like a beating. But then they look at my like footage that I've done my whole entire life, like, okay, that makes sense. That makes sense. I probably have a crazy pain tolerance, like super crazy pain tolerance. So that's just what I do. I still, when I'm a wrestler, I don't just like take it easy, even outside the ring. Kind of, it's almost as risky outside the ring for me as it is inside the ring half the time. But I like it like that. It keeps me on my toes.
Well, talking about WrestleDream, I want to go back a little bit to last year. And that last year, you were in the main event of WrestleDream in Seattle, where you got to take on Christian Cage for the TNT Championship. You weren't successful in that match, but in that particular match, I want to say really upped the level of danger we had seen from you on pay-per-view in particular. And it, I remember I went out in the crowd and watched that main event. And the audience was all there for you. It felt like kind of everybody in that building really wanted to see Christian go down, and they wanted to see Darby Allin up. But on the other side of that, I kind of want to take this in a slightly different direction, because one of the things that's happened recently for Brody King and the House of Black as a whole is that it really feels like the fans are very much getting behind them in a really strong way in recent months. So I kind of want to talk about a little bit of the challenges there. Yes, you're the hometown guy in Tacoma as far as the home state is concerned. But at the same time, how do you expect something a little bit different out of a Brody King that has been a little bit more motivated by the fan reception?
It's actually kind of crazy because Brody King, he can be the first to tell you that his career actually started taking off in Seattle at Defy. Mm-hmm. So in a weird way, he's also like this hometown guy, like in the spirit of like Seattle, be like, this is our guy, Washington, or, Seattle, Tacoma, Washington. This is our guy. Like this, like the energy is there. So I really think the crowd is going to be split. And I also think that Brody's going to be super like motivated, because if anybody knows, it's a privilege to get on an AEW pay-per-view, and it doesn't come easy. And I remember my first year in AEW just begging, like anything, like, please, like, let me be on a pay-per-view. Like, I just want to show the world what I can do. And that's what it is. It's just showing everybody what we can do. And I feel like the pay-per-views, for some reason, everybody gives 100% on Wednesdays, Saturdays, but like on pay-per-views, man, they get wild. And I think like Brody's also just like, he's ready to get wild. I think, like I said earlier, he's ready to show the fans what he's capable of again. And I feel like he's like dying to break out because the years go by fast. The years go by very fast. We're in year 5 of AEW. And, the thing with Brody is, he wants to be the best he can be. And he's not here coasting to get a paycheck. He wants to literally drop the wrestling world on its head. And he knows the best way to do that is, show out at an AEW pay-per-view and steal the show. And I think that's what he fully intends to do. As so do I. I don't go in there just another match. Like, no, man, I could have been in the main event last year, but to me, this is the main event. Like, in my heart, I believe like we're going to go out there and we're going to do everything we can do.
Awesome. Dude. Incredible. I'm so excited to see what crazy shit you and Brody do this weekend. Guaranteed it's going to be a banger. It's going to be memorable. It's going to be hard hitting. I'm so stoked. Thank you so much for chatting with us today about your match. I'm excited to see it.
Yeah. Go Brian.
Go Brian. Thanks, Darby.
All right. Take care.
Oh man, I mean, Darby just saying like, go Brian. How do we not close this pay-per-view on talking about the match that I think everyone is looking forward to most? But it's also not looking forward to, right? It is the AEW World Championship match, Bryan Danielson versus Jon Moxley. And the reason why I say maybe not looking forward to is Bryan has said if he loses the title, he's done. And I don't think I'm ready for that. I haven't been ready the whole time. I don't know what to do. I'm so sad.
Well, there's two schools of thought on this, right? Yes. It's on one side, he's Bryan Danielson.
Yeah.
He wins this. I mean, look, he's, as long as Bryan Danielson has that fight in his heart, Bryan Danielson is not going into that good night. But Jon Moxley.
Oh, buddy.
3-time AEW World Champion. And this is actually his first opportunity at the AEW World Championship since he lost it 2 years ago at Full Gear.
Whoa, I didn't even realize that. Oh my God. So he's got like a chip on his shoulder a little bit here.
He's got a bit of a chip on his shoulder. Jon Moxley is fairly synonymous with the AEW World Championship.
He's also fairly synonymous with Bryan Danielson. The two of them have been a part of BCC for so long, and we only recently saw Jon Moxley sort of turn his back on Danielson. We've seen this new version of the BCC come around with Jon Moxley, Claudio, Pac, and Marina Shafir. Like, Jon Moxley has this new energy about him that I don't like, and I'm very scared to see what that version of Jon Moxley looks like in a title match.
It's scary. It's scary to think about. And like I said, like you just said, we haven't seen Jon Moxley this dangerous side of Jon Moxley. We haven't seen this dangerous side of the BCC. A BCC that was willing to take out one of their core founding members. And, it gets you to thinking back, how long has Moxley been hanging on to this grudge against Bryan Danielson? Does it really go back to Full Gear 2022 when Moxley lost the world title and Regal turned his back on him? And Bryan sided with Regal at the time. And there's so much history and animosity here, and for it to have come to a head at All Out the way it did in such a violent, gruesome way, Moxley has very clearly made his intentions known. He is not just here to win back the AEW World Championship and potentially become the first ever 4-time AEW World Champion, but he wants to end Bryan Danielson's career. He wants to put Bryan Danielson under, and knowing what Bryan himself has said, this is his opportunity to do so.
Oh my God. Like, it's one of those things where like I want to be prepared for the just in case and bring a bunch of tissues, but at the same time, I don't think I'm going to, because I don't want the possibility to be real. Like, I think we're all rooting for Bryan here. I really am. I really am.
Go Bryan all the way.
Go Bryan.
And
Darby said it
knowing
right.
that, how special the Tacoma Dome is to Bryan Danielson. He's talked about it forever. He's talked about the fact that this is where he and his dad watched wrestling growing up. And to know that Bryan gets to walk in to the Tacoma Dome as the AEW World Champion, that's really special. That's really cool. And I'm excited to see this match, but I'm also excited for this reign to continue. I am. I'm not ready for this to end. Not yet. Not the way he won the title at All In. It's not time.
No, it's not. I wish this goes the way we all want it to go. Regardless, I know it's going to be a battle for the ages. It's going to be phenomenal. When you have Jon Moxley and Bryan Danielson in the main event, like, you're not going to get anything less than absolutely friggin' stellar. This match is going to be worth the price of a ticket alone. And if you aren't going to WrestleDream, please watch it. ppv.com, Triller TV, YouTube. There's but seriously, get on a plane ticket. It's not that expensive. Go to WrestleDream. It's at the Tacoma Dome. You pay for the whole seat. You only use the edge. AEWTix.com. It's going to be a phenomenal show. Watch it on pay-per-view, please. You can watch Dynamite on Wednesdays on TBS. You can watch Rampage on TNT every Friday. You can watch Collision on Saturdays on TNT. And of course, don't forget Ring of Honor. We've got Honor Club every Thursday. Catch all of the latest AEW shows on the go when you download the TNT and TBS apps from the App Store and Google Play. Then sign up for a weekly newsletter at tntdrama.com/elitefleet to get updates on upcoming shows, live events, sweepstakes, merchandise, and more. WrestleDream is this weekend. You will see me there. I'm Aubrey Edwards. Will be there too. Just he's in the back. Thank you for listening to AEW Unrestricted. Peace.